Hey, friends, welcome back to the Call to Lead podcast. And today's episode is going to be such a good one. I've been so excited to introduce y'all to my dear friend and Saint sister, Jerrica Mortenson, who is a top leader here. She's like one of the top 12 leaders in this entire company. And she's done it through consistency and inspiring and encouraging others to work their business however they works best for them, but really in ways that look kind of counter to what you see out there in terms of trying to build some following online. So you're going to love Jerica's story and her wisdom, and honestly, a little bit of tough love, I bet, that she's going to bring to us today. So let's dive into the episode. Jerica, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I love to share my story and my passion for our industry, and I do it a little bit differently than most do with some tough love.
Yes, yes, definitely. I remember being on a call recently with you on a leader call, and everything you were saying, I was like, I'm like, "Hey, everybody, do this." And then I was like, can I please interview you?" So you may or may not have heard Jerica's story, but I'd love for you to kind of update, for anybody who hasn't, just give us the backstory of like where you're from, tiny town, all the things.
Yeah, so I live in a small town in Iowa. We have less than 1,000 people in our town. No stoplights, no super small town farming community. I always tell people, we're surrounded by cows and cornfields here. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together since we were 16, and we have three children, 15. They all just had birthdays, 15, 11, and 9. So we are busy, busy. I was a dental assistant for 15 years, still have my license and do some PRN work here and there, but otherwise I've jumped into Seint kind of full time once COVID hit. So I started this just as something fun. I love makeup and I love sharing it, and then it just kind of took off. So that's a little bit about my story and where I'm from and how I got into Saint.
I love that. And I'm sure as people are listening, they're like, wait, how do you live in a town of 1,000 people and grow your business to literally hundreds of teamies and probably thousands of customers at this point? Like, literally, Jerica, you probably have more customers, more sane customers than people in your town. So,
Yes.
explain for those who are maybe thinking, like, how does one do that? Because it's not by going viral, it's definitely not by building a big following. So, tell us how you got started in your Saint business.
Yeah, so originally when I had signed up, my husband works for John Deere and he was in a department where they were working 6 days a week, 12-hour days. And so he would leave before the kids were and I were even up in the morning, and he would often get home, as we were doing bath time or bedtime. And so I knew, and I was working 5 days a week at a dental office, and I just knew that I did not wanna live like this forever. I didn't want to live raising my kids with my husband working all the time and having to call grandparents to help with rides or to get kids places. And so once I saw the vision and I knew what was possible here, I decided that I needed to make some sacrifices the first year in my business. And so what I started doing was, and I thrive off in-person stuff. I love connecting with people, building relationships with people. I hate creating content. I hate doing like videos. Like I want to be interacting person to person. And so I knew that my husband was for sure off every Sunday. He had every Sunday off. And so what I started doing was I started doing some in-person makeup classes that I would host in person, or I would have customers that would host. And I started booking out every Sunday at different customers' houses that were like, maybe 20 minutes away or 30 minutes away in these little small surrounding towns. And I would have, 8 to 10 girls come and we would do makeup and we would make it into a makeup class where we're teaching busy moms, busy ladies who work outside the home, how to simplify their beauty routines and focused on really serving them and what their needs were. And so I was always hitting the top of our compensation plan every month. And then I was adding about 8 to 10 new customers per week. And that was the easiest way for me to do it by just taking 2 or 3 hours every Sunday to build my business.
Oh, gosh, that's so good and seriously so inspiring because I know it really just starts with one great class, right? And I remember you saying this somewhere on some training that it's like, and you probably started with yourself, right? Like as your first hostess. And then what happens is you have one of those 8 to 10 women who's like, oh my gosh, this is fun. I want to do it. And then I remember you telling me that like one girl was like a town over, right? And so then next thing you know, that town, they all wanted to do it. And so you were driving. So, how did it go from just like, because some people might think, oh, well, I don't even know enough people to have a class every single week. So, how did it grow, would you say?
So I think the biggest thing for you to remember is that you have to start somewhere. And even if that means starting for yourself, Heather, like you just said, I hosted my own makeup and mimosas brunch at my house on a Sunday. That was the first class that I had. And my mom, my sister, my twin sister, who wears no makeup at all, she came and my mom, my sisters, my cousins, some of my close friends came and then what happened, as we were checking them out or they were leaving, I just asked them, like, would you be interested in hosting one next Sunday? And so we then went to their house the next Sunday. And then I was exposed, like you said, to a whole nother town. And they had girls, my friend's sister-in-law, actually, who I didn't even know, she booked the next class. And so I went to her class. Well, then I was in a room full of a bunch of ladies that I had no idea who they were. They were all brand new to me. And so then I talked with them and I ended up booking classes for several of those ladies that lived in surrounding towns. And it just continued to grow because I wasn't afraid to ask them to host a makeup class. Many of them had wish list as we were checking out. They had other things that they wanted to add. And so I was just very upfront and honest with them, like, hey, if you want to host next Sunday, we could get you a lot of these items, discounted or even free to continue to build your collection. So I think you have to be willing to show them what you have to offer. And you have to be willing to just get out of your comfort zone and marry that process and divorce the outcome. If they say no, they don't want to host, that's okay. But you never know. The answer is always gonna be no unless you ask.
Yes. Well, and I was just talking to somebody about this, or maybe it was on Replicate Your Results. I don't even know. But Sarah and I think we're talking about that whenever you actually ask someone, like if you say, hey, I think you'd be a great hostess, or, hey, I think you'd be an amazing artist. Would, have you thought about doing this business? They notice that, and that tends to be what they do too. So what you're modeling as an example is what they're gonna do. Whereas if you just passively sit back and think everyone's just gonna come to you, I can tell you that's not gonna happen. Like, not unless you have some, like, viral following and some, tons of people, and even then, it really doesn't happen because you don't have the capacity of creating those deep relationships like have always been your focus. And so I love that I know from your diving in personally with really strong sales, setting a goal to hit that top commission bracket, which obviously was a huge blessing right out the gate for your family, because at 40% commission, that is very nice. But the best part about it is then it started to duplicate into the team side. So how did you go from like focusing on your personal business to then, kind of inspiring other people on your team to do the same?
Yeah, so I think there was a little bit of a mindset shift when, you hear stories all the time or you see stuff on the internet and it's a huge highlight reel. We all know that where you're seeing everyone's success online. They're not sharing the struggles or the hardships. So I was not really sure if what I was seeing was truly possible here. And then when I had a mindset shift that anything is possible here. Even if someone wants to come into this business and the only thing they want to do is make $100 a month to pay for dance or gymnastics or soccer or whatever it is, it's totally possible. And I started realizing as I was enrolling people that most people did not want what I wanted. And in fact, if you were to ask Sarah, who my mentor, when I first started this, I was like, no, I love my job. I love my patients. I will never quit my job. But then as I started to see the things that came along with not just the income, but the freedom to be able to say, hey, I don't have to request time off to go on this field trip with my kids.
Mm.
Or I don't have to figure out how I'm getting all of my children to 3 different schools in the morning. This was before we moved and now we only have 1 school. But how was I gonna get my children to 3 different schools in the morning when I'm already at work for an hour before they even have to be to school? And so it was little things like that. And then as I started bringing girls on and realizing that people don't join this company to make millions of dollars. People don't join our industry to replace full-time incomes. This is something that they do that's for them, just something that they love to do. It's something that they do for the sisterhood. It's something that they do to maybe create just a little bit of income for gas or groceries or extra trips or the fun things. And so I switched my mindset to I need to start sharing about this opportunity as much as I'm sharing about the products because this can change so many lives that it's unbelievable, and it's a huge disservice to not share the opportunity that we have here.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And it's so crazy. Some of my directs, because I know they obviously like my podcast. I was literally having this conversation in my directs Telegram thread this morning saying the same thing that I think people can feel like, oh, well, I'm not making the kind of income that Jerrica and Heather are making, which we'll share a link to the income disclosure because anytime we talk about this stuff, it's important to include that. And same for anybody listening. One of the gals was wanting to share some of the big numbers, like my numbers specifically. And I was like, well, I don't want you to do that for a couple reasons. One, I don't think it would be compliant, but also I was like, I don't think that's what people want out of this. I mean, yes, is it possible? Absolutely. And we are, proof of what's possible here when you put in years of hard work and consistency, which we'll talk about how it doesn't stop, right? Like when you've arrived to some level, right? Because this is a business at the end of the day. But what most people want, because we've all been beat over the head by like you can make the bajillions of dollars, and there are certain network marketing leaders who can be enticed by what's possible. But most real like working moms or stay-at-home moms, like they want something for them. They want something that can be a blessing in terms of the community or something fun. And the income is really just a byproduct of that. And then you can kind of get inspired by your own, like diving in. You're like, oh, wow, if I can do this, maybe I can do more of this. So anyway, I love that part of the conversation. I was just having that this morning. And I think you're right when you can shift your focus, even if you have big goals, to realize most people do not serve them and inspire them by your action. So let's dive into like now here, because did you join in 2018 or 20?
So June 1st of 2017.
17. So we're coming up on 7 years, like in a couple of
Yes,
months, so over 6
yes.
years. So now let's flash forward 6 years later, 7 years in total or over 7 for Seint. We're in a little bit of a different world, which I've been talking a lot about on this podcast in terms of like Seint kind of entering this coasting phase, like the promotional growth by promotions where it's like kind of going flat. And then of course we're dipping a little bit because we've got the shakeout where some people are leaving. We're kind of unapologetic about that. But talk about how things are maybe different now for your business in this season and what that looks like for someone who might be similar to you in terms of like they've been a leader here for a minute and what your advice to them would be.
Yeah, so I think that for one, in your business, any business that you're in or anything that you do in life, consistency is a huge factor. And I think as especially if you're a leader in this company, and to me, leadership is not a rank. So it doesn't matter what rank someone is, that does not make them a leader. There are girls on my team, you guys, that have one person under them or no artist under them, and they impact my team huge, and they are leaders. I look at them as leaders. And so I don't think leadership even has I mean, yes, a rank is hard and you work hard for it and it should be recognized, but I think that leadership does not it's not based on your rank, and I think you have to be willing to do what most people aren't willing to do to get what you want, and I think you have to be able to set that pace for your team or for anyone that you want on your team. So even if you don't have a team right now, people that are watching you and want to join, they're gonna think that they have to do whatever you do. And so, like, one thing that is specific for me is, like, I you guys, I didn't even have an Instagram until COVID, until 2020 hit, and I'm like, everything's going online. And I want people to realize that you don't have to sell your soul to this company to make life-changing income. And like we said, that life-changing number could be different for everyone, but even if you're willing to sacrifice 4 hours on a Sunday to build your business and work hard, you can do it. Now, if you're someone who loves to create content and show up in your stories and all of that, you can do that. And the girls that join your team, they're probably going to think that those are some of the things that they need to do as well. So I'm a firm believer that the speed of the pack is the speed of the leader. Don't ever ask your team to do something you're not willing to do, but you have to be showing up every single day. Even if you're 7 years into this business, you have to show up. You would not be able to take a 8 to 5 job and call in sick every day and expect to get a paycheck at the end of that pay period. And that's the same thing with this type of business, this type of company. You're not going to sign up for a network marketing company and sit back and do nothing and expect a paycheck. That's not how it works. And so you got to set that pace for your team, and you got to set that leadership and be willing to show up and do the things that you have to do. One thing that I talk to my team about all the time, because I like I said, when I started this company, I was working full time. I had 3 young kids. My husband works 6 days a week. I had no business adding anything else to my plate. But I am firm when I say the busiest people get the most stuff done. And if you fail to plan, you might as well plan to fail. And so I just think that, like as a leader, I lead by example that look, the busiest of people can do this. And it's really based on what you want and how much you're willing to sacrifice. You can't get 7 years into this business and say, oh my gosh, my sales are down, but I've continued to do the same thing I've always done for the last year. I mean, you're gonna have to switch your business up and understand that, like, yeah, all the online stuff, all the content creation, that was all really good and dandy when COVID was happening and everyone was glued to their computers and everyone was at home and they were sitting around and watching this stuff. But if something has changed in your business and your sales are down or your team isn't growing, you have to be willing to take a step back and say, what can I do differently? And not continue to do the same thing and expect different results.
Think that I can even say, and we were chatting about this before we hit record, and I've been pretty honest about this on the podcast too, that I even kind of myself did this where I think about 5 years in, I was like, okay, I've arrived. I've hit this really high rank. I've got this income that I'm very content with. And of course, I did my scale without social, going completely off social experiment, if you will, which, as I've also been honest, was a little hard because it people couldn't see what I was doing, right? So then it was difficult for them to know, like that I actually really was still working my business and still growing my business, actually. But I know I kind of had this mindset at some point that, like, again, I had arrived, and now, 2 years from that point, I have a completely different perspective that I don't know that I've ever been more inspired and fired up about my business to be able to help other women do this business. And that I think is should be the goal, is not to like sit back and not have to do anything and drink pina coladas on the beach. I don't think that's what the Lord wants of us either. I honestly think that like when you can tap into the things that light you up, like you mentioned, same as me, that in-person connections, relationships, talking like this, and I love to do this like with my team and my leaders and things like that. Like that's the thing that I love about this business. And the cool thing is that builds connection, which is what this business is based off of. And so when you can get to the point, not that you're just going to pull back and not have to do the work or not have to do anything, but instead you can like step into your purpose, step in to your passion and shift your focus off your goals to helping other people. Watch out, because that is when this business becomes the most fulfilling, the most impactful, regardless if it's no longer going straight up like it maybe once was. So let's talk about this, Jerrica, because I was so excited. I have been wanting to do this like little key performance indicator spreadsheet where like I could share it and people could do it. And I was like, Jerrica, will you be my guinea pig and send me your numbers? And I was so excited. And I had a feeling this was the case because I've never seen somebody work as hard as Jerrica is in this season with that same kind of fire and passion. And you guys, it's working because she is seeing like an upward trajectory over the last like 3 or 4 months in so many areas, like enrollments, rank advancements, her team volume, total team size, all of that. But Jerrica, tell me what inspired you the most after looking at some of the data, because I think that will be, I think, telling, especially for people who've been doing this for a long time and maybe still feel like their business needs to go straight up.
Yeah, so I think for me, I celebrate consistency. And I think that you have to start slow to go fast. And again, in this industry, so many think that you're going to join and that you're going to be making millions of dollars, or you're going to have a team of 1,000 people, or you're going to do all this stuff. And to me, I think it's just I was so happy to see that while there are leaders in our industry and in our company in general, that are talking about the struggle of their personal sales or their team sales or their team declining. I feel like I have really put the work in to kind of change some of the things or the way that I'm leading my team or I'm running my business or even my personal business, going back to doing a lot of in-person stuff. And our team has stayed very consistent or, like you said, even gone up the last several months. And so I think it's just a testament to, if you are willing to stay in this for the long haul, you guys, things are about to change if you are willing to keep track of your data, if you're willing to shift your mindset, if you're willing to change some of the things that you've been doing that isn't working. And that's one thing that I personally love about this industry is that I am a completely different person. Not just my work ethic, but like even how I interact with people and the personal growth that I have had since joining. I feel like that's one of the biggest successes here is that you in an industry like this, you are continuously growing and you're learning all the time, right? We're learning what's working, we're learning what's not working, we're learning when we have to shift our focus, but we can celebrate the top team. If any of you girls are listening, top team has been a very consistent team from the beginning in Saint, I would say.
Yes. And honestly, I think when you contrast like the network marketing or direct sales industry with like, I had a boutique in the past or like your dental office where you worked for forever. None of us, like, we never expected it to just, like, have 20% year-over-year growth. I was just happy to maintain. Now, if it went down, it was sometimes you had to adjust a little bit, and that definitely happened, and some of it was seasonality, some of it was, related to, like, the economy, and as I mentioned on a recent podcast, I think some of those things are impacting the industry as a whole right now, but really finding ways to be consistent and almost gonna have, like, a flat line or well, it's never flat, right? It looks more like a roller coaster, but that is the goal, and that is definitely what you guys have done, and I was so excited to see that, but also the fact that the work and effort that you've been putting in terms of connecting with pretty much everybody on your team, encouraging them, empowering them, but also empowering your leaders to lead. Like, you've got some really amazing emerging spotlights of leader growth that has to feel good because it's less pressure on you to lead everybody, right? So maybe talk about that, like what it looks like to actually build up other leaders and the freedom that that creates and the fulfillment in your business.
Yeah, so that's been so fun. I do have a lot of leaders that, we talk about letting the bird fly. They're like this baby bird and they've done all the things. And again, they've duplicated a lot of what they've seen from myself or other leaders in our company, and they've just been able to lead their own team successfully, and they're duplicating. Their teams are growing like crazy, and they're planning fun little events like I it used to be all on my shoulders to do like these beauty bashes, and I'm like, now we have all these leaders that are stepping up and they're creating graphics and they're doing the videos and they're doing all the things. And it is so, so inspiring to just see them have success and see them step into that leadership and be able to just lead their own teams. And then it allows me the opportunity to continue to work with other new artists on my team. And they see that as well. And some of them are even having leaders that are kind of stepping out and being able to kind of lead their team. And now they're starting to recruit again, get these new groups of artists and be able to do the same thing.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. That is so good. And I think sometimes it can feel like leaders who have done amazing things in their business like you have, that they still have to do it all for their people, and that is a recipe for burnout. And if you don't let them almost even fail forward, right? Because they're not always going to get it right, or not even going to do it the way that you would do it. But it's like watching them have that freedom and also the creativity to like take on those things and to tweak it and try something new, like, that can be the inspiration for us to then be like, "Oh, wait, that's working for her. Maybe I could do that too." And it's just yeah, that's the best part of this business for sure. So,
Yeah.
I would love to like, before we wrap up, I would love for you to talk about, the kinda elephant in the room, which is seeing a lot of leaders or top sellers add on an additional income stream with another network marketing company, or in some cases, leave to go to it. And I know you and I have been, very aligned in the fact that like Saint is still such an amazing opportunity as we've talked about. But what would be your advice for those who are seeing that and seeing that shakeout happen? Maybe they themselves aren't yet a leader and they're like, wait, what's happening? Like, what would be your advice to someone who's maybe seeing that go down?
Well, first of all, in my personal opinion, I think that adding more than one company can be very tricky. I don't know of any top leader that has made it to the top of 2 companies. And in fact, I think that sometimes their team at one company or the other will suffer because how do you pour into, 2 teams? I think sometimes it confuses your customer base. Like, do they really love all these products? Or like, is this, a sales grab where they're just sharing all this different stuff? So that is my personal opinion. I think it confuses your team. I think that it confuses your customers. But what I really think is there are girls that have millions of followers. There's girls that have gone viral on TikTok or Instagram on these social media platforms, and they have the following to support that vision. They want to live more of an influencer lifestyle by sharing multiple products, multiple brands. And I think that that is okay. And that's something that all of us can choose, whether we want to do that. But I think for the average artist, one thing to look at when you look at yourself and you look at your business, how many people do you have following you? Do you struggle to even get active or earn an income here with one company? How many hours do you have to truly dedicate to your business? And what is your end goal? Because if your end goal is to make, even part time income and you're struggling here, it would be a good idea to get with your mentor, get with your leader and talk about like, hey, what would be best for me? Because I don't have a following. I don't have all these viewers. I'm on the struggle bus with my business right now. I think sometimes what happens, especially in our industry, is people see, or artists specifically in Saint are seeing some of these top artists. And the other thing too is like some of the, I don't want to say that they're not top artists, but they're not necessarily top ranked in the company. If you look at a lot of the top ranked artists in the company, they are loyal and dedicated to one company, and that's Saint. Now, some of these girls are top sellers in the company, or they've gone viral and they're adding other things and they've gained a lot of followers. So maybe these lower level artists are seeing that and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to add this and I need to add that. And now they're trying to manage 3 other things. I think keep in mind that those girls, they have the audience to support that. They are probably not working a full-time job like you are. Like, this is their full-time job, content creation, the influencer lifestyle. So I think there's a lot to factor in. There's a lot of things to think of. But personally, my head is down. I am staying in my lane. I'm working with my team here. Um, and I still truly believe that, we just listened to that Bob Heilig, whatever his live that he did on Instagram. And
Love.
I'm totally aligned with that. Like it is it is best to really just focus on one company, stay consistent in your business, and give yourself the chance. It's the Eric Worre that says it takes 1 year in the business to figure this out. It takes 3 years to create part-time income, 5 years to create full-time income. So you guys, do yourself a favor, recommit to your business and give yourself a year of full consistency to see what could happen here.
Mm.
Before you jump ship, before you add another company, just give yourself the permission to go all in with one company for an entire year to see what can happen.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And it's never too late. I think sometimes people feel like because they've maybe been in a company, whether it's Saint or another one, where like they've maybe been kind of swimming around, like we call them sea turtles, right? And like our little quiz, like they kind of just been hanging around, or maybe at one point they were a top leader and pulled back or top performer, whatever that looks like, and they pulled back in their business and they feel like they have to start over again. And to some extent, you do. You have to, you do have to like recommit and you can't expect it's like the popcorn analogy. You can't take the popcorn out halfway through cooking and expect to put it back in and then finish the cooking and have the popcorn pop, right? So the same is with your business, but you're also not starting over. You're not starting from scratch. Like you have, the connections, you have the experience, you have the growth, and it's never too late to just fully dive into this thing. And I think if you're listening to this podcast and you've listened to this whole thing, I know Jerrica's story has been so inspiring to you because she has done it in a way that anyone can do it, that you can do it. And so I just encourage you to, just like Jerrica, just to stick the course and put your head down, focus in, and see what happens in your business a year from now. So, Jerrica, any parting wisdom that you want to share? Or anything we forgot? I feel like I'm like, we had so much we were going to talk about, but I feel like this has been gold.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I I hope that this reaches the girls that need to hear that, no matter where you live or where you come from, like the big things are possible for you. And I think that that's one of my favorite things about my story is that you do hear of people that, maybe they had a YouTube following back in the day or, and they're top leaders. Like some of that is expected. But guys, I started with 0 followers. I started with 0 customers, 0 artists. And if I can do this, anyone can do this. And I just hope that you listen to this today, you recommit to your business and you decide what consistency looks for you and you stay consistent because that consistency is key and you're going to be able to look back in a year or 2 years or 3 years and be like, "I am so glad that I stayed with it."
Yes, amen to that. Well, Jerrica, thank you for bringing the gold as I knew you would. If people want to follow you, I know you are now on Instagram, like you said, and also on Facebook, right? Like, where can people go to just connect with you or stay in touch with you?
I would say my main platform is Facebook. So Facebook is look me up on Facebook, you can connect with me there, or you can follow me on Instagram too. I'm just not as super active there.
Yeah, no, anyway, you know my feelings on the social media and taking baby
Yes.
steps back back there. So yeah, that's perfect. Well, thank you again, Jerrica. You are amazing. What a blessing our friendship and partnership in this business is. And I know so many are inspired. So thanks again, girl.
Yes, thank you.